Jenna.
Hi.
Christine.
Very
so
nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for meeting me here today.
Absolutely, not
I've
a
had
problem.
A completely busy schedule, and this is about the only time I could fit you in.
That's fine.
First,
no issues.
I wanted to give you a copy of the job description before we get started.
Okay.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Sure.
All right. So I see you was at East Jefferson for 9 years. That's a long time.
Yes, it was.
And you 2 years doing contract work?
Yes.
And 7 years doing manager work?
Yes.
Okay.
I worked as a specialty manager for 3 years and PCP for 5.
Good.
2.
Very good. And you also served working with quality?
Yes, I did.
On the committee?
Yes.
That's wonderful. Okay. So I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
And we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Okay. So I know we've kind of reviewed over a few things.
Yes.
So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I actually have, like I said, provider office manager experience. And my background is I have an undergraduate degree in healthcare administration and I have a master's degree in public health, but with a focus on health policy and systems management. So do have a little bit of a public health background that comes into the quality piece of, working with Humana and working with providers and members, but also still that provider experience, that provider office experience as well to bring to the table.
So you've dealt a lot with population health issues as well.
Yes.
So that's great. How have your educational and work experiences prepared you for this type of position?
So I think that my background will bring a different perspective to the position because I know many of the current care managers are nurses.
Yes.
So a lot of the background that I have in the provider office will allow a different perspective into the position. So you kind of look at it from a different angle, not quite that clinical background, but you can use your business background to kind of take the position to another level.
Very good, and I agree. It does give us a little bit of diversity amongst the departments. All right, so how would you prioritize special projects and stuff? So with this role, it does require a lot of project development in regards to population health, dealing with the physicians and stuff like that. So how would you prioritize what projects to do first?
Sure. I think that when it comes to prioritization, the biggest challenge is making sure what's going to have the biggest impact at the end of the day. So when you look at all of your projects, if there's something that's going to make a big impact, coming from my background on the clinic, but in this role it would be for the provider specifically. You're going to want to take that highest impact project and work on that first. You don't want to take something that's not going to make a big difference one way or the other and prioritize that project, because then at the end of the day you're still having that huge deadline kind of outstanding.
I agree.
Yes.
And there's quite multiple projects that we work on every year and focusing on different health issues.
Right.
But each year that can change.
Sure.
So
have to be adaptable.
That's extremely very good point.
Right.
How do you communicate with coworkers whom you may have had personal problems with prior?
I think for that, the biggest challenge is going to be you're going to want to keep your communication work focused. You're not going to want to let your personal feelings or anything come into play because at the end of the day, you're here to do a job. So you need to make sure you can communicate with them on a level where it's going to stay professional and also focused on work. And you don't want to engage any kind of conflict or, you don't want to engage them into a personal discussion because at the end of the day, you're not helping your coworkers, you're not helping your team that you work with because everything's going to kind of make an impact down the line somewhere.
And you're still having to communicate with them.
And you're still having to communicate with them.
And being professional and keeping it off of that personal level.
Yeah, so you want to make sure you don't bring in the personal. Personal and work need to stay separate.
Absolutely, I agree. And how do you deal with conflicts?
So I think that it kind of ties into that last question. You're going to want to keep your personal feelings out of a lot of it. When you're dealing with conflict, my previous role, I was a supervisor. So when you're dealing with conflict from peer-to-peer, that's a completely different situation than dealing with team conflict. So when you're dealing with conflict for your direct reports, that's where your disciplinary actions and different things come in, but you're not going to do that when it's a peer. So if you're talking in a peer-to-peer situation, you're going to want to do the same thing. You don't want to engage the conflict. You don't want to engage into the conversation. Keep it short, sweet, professional, to the point, focused on work. Just kind of keep that conflict out as much as you can.
And sometimes we're going to come across conflict,
Sure.
whether it's with providers or
Absolutely,
other team
yeah.
members. So finding a higher road, like
Yes.
you said, and keeping it
Pretty
not
much.
personal is the best way to approach it.
Keeping it work focused is the most important part.
And sometimes that could be a challenge, but
It is.
you have a good plan in
Yes.
place. So that's
Been
great.
there, done that for many years now.
Tell us about how you've handled dissatisfied providers or PCPs in the past.
So I think for that, when you're dealing with providers, they get very focused on something that's not going their way. So what you're going to want to do is you definitely want to take the time to reassure them that you're doing everything that you can. A lot of times it's explaining the situation to them from another perspective. They may be worried about a patient care issue when it's really not a patient care issue. It may be a team member issue. You want to make sure that they understand where you're coming from and that you're not going to just drag out whatever they're dissatisfied with, that you're actually going to work with them to try and improve it. If you spend the time with the provider to explain it, to kind of give them a background of what you're going to do to help out the situation, I find that most of the time they do come around. A lot of them tend to, fly off the handle per se. They get really upset about something. They don't want it to impact their patients. That's okay. They don't want it to impact their patients. Really, at the end of the day, they kind of want you to handle all of the administrative side. They want to handle their patient care. And if you can explain to them that what you're going to do is going to fix the problem and not impact their day-to-day patient care, usually they're pretty happy with that.
And with this role, you might have dissatisfied providers or PCPs just because they're not happy with their scores.
Sure.
So that's not necessarily something that you can change for them.
Right.
But how would you approach that?
So I think that, when you're dealing with their quality scores, what you're going to want to do is explain to them why they are where they are. And then also you're going to want to give them the education and the resources to improve those scores and bring them up to wherever they think they should be. You want to make sure they understand why. That's one of the biggest things with providers I've noticed is that they kind of want to know what the reason is. They want to know if they have non-compliant patients. They want to know if they have, patients who just don't come in and see them. They want to know the background. So if you're able to provide them the background information and then kind of give them the resources to move forward, usually that will help them, kind of understand. Oh yeah, I'm sure you do.
And so your experience on the quality committee, having to disseminate that information when their scores were not good.
Yes,
I like to hear that insight that you been there and done that, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
With this type of position, it's very important.
And I think explaining the background to them is one of the most important.
Education is definitely kind of the proof in the pudding perspective.
Absolutely.
One of the requirements of this position is that you be a self-starter. So can you give me an example of when you've had to be a self-starter?
Sure. If you go back to my first role as a manager, it was right out of college. I had, not a whole lot of support from my leadership. A lot of it was on-the-job training. I was learning from the nurses and the clerical staff that were in the office with me, really taking what they knew about the clinic and kind of developing that into my own plan with the kind of, I don't want to say lack of leadership, but just there wasn't a whole lot of direct help from leadership. It was more kind of you're on your own, you need to take it and run with it.
Jumped in with 2 feet.
Yes, absolutely. And so if you so basically what I was able to do was to take what I learned from them on the job and develop that into workflow improvements for the clinic, policy and procedure development and different things. Just listening to what they had to say, because a lot of that, you get a lot of insight into what's working, what's not working. So you can kind of jump into it, like you said, with 2 feet, because if you take what they're telling you, you can use that to motivate them. You can use that to change processes and policies as well.
And you working with so many different types of people definitely gave you a much better perspective.
Because in that first role I worked with nurses, x-ray techs, and clerical employees. So it was, and residents as well. So
you really did have to get in there and
you just had to get in there and
get it done.
Get it done. Yeah, there was no waiting around.
Okay, what qualities do you have that make you an effective team player?
I think that one of my qualities that impacts how you work well with a team is communication. I think that as we were just discussing my background, I've worked with several different types of employees. I've managed several different types of employees, and I think that having a communication style that's adaptable to different roles. The way you're going to discuss something with maybe a nurse is not the same way you're going to discuss something with a front office team member. So being able to adapt your communication type to make the biggest impact on that team member is really important, and you can use that within your own team as well. Because I know most teams are diverse. I'm sure there's a lot of different backgrounds on this team. And being able to use those different communication styles, I think kind of puts you in an advantage where you kind of can become the center of the team. You're able to communicate with everybody. So it allows you.
It's very important when you're a part of a team versus a manager or supervisor.
Absolutely.
But even in a manager or supervisor role, you're still a part of the team. You just happen to be guiding the team a little bit more.
And you have to also be able to be part of the team. Like you said, you have to be able to
get the buy-in.
Well, and not only that, sometimes you have to be the front office person. Sometimes you have to be the clinical backup.
I'd love to hear that.
You don't always get to be the manager, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, you are where the buck stops.
You're where the buck stops.
Yes.
You're anything and everything.
What can you contribute to our organization?
I think that I can contribute. I'm going to bring a different background, a different perspective than what is probably the makeup of the team as of now, not knowing the rest of the team members. Obviously I'm not 100% sure, but I think my background in education is probably very different from a lot of the clinicians who are part of the team right now. And I think that there's an advantage to that. I think especially when you're dealing with providers, you're dealing with quality, a lot of that now is based on pay. They want to talk reimbursement, they want to talk clinical processes and best practices, and I have a lot of experience with that, so I do think that will be a benefit to the organization and to the team as well.
Very good. We're looking at a lot of great candidates right now, and so can you just tell me why would you be the best person for this position?
Sure. I think that kind of ties into that last question. So I think that having a different perspective does set me apart from the rest of the applicants. You want a team that is diverse so you can pull knowledge from a bunch of different places. You want to make sure that you have a resource on your team for any situation that may come up. And being able to add to that diversity of the team, I think, is definitely an advantage, over the other applicants in my case.
I agree that diversity is important when filling a team, and we do collaborate a lot together as a team in order to, focus on different provider issues in the Gulf States region. Did you have any questions for me?
No, I don't believe so. The job description makes sense. I think we're good.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure.
It was nice to meet you. Thank you.